Greywood Manor was notorious in our small town, a sprawling, dilapidated mansion that loomed over the edge of the forest. It had been abandoned for decades, left to decay, and become a playground for local legends and ghost stories. But the tale of Greywood was not just another campfire story. It was a real nightmare that few dared to remember. It all started when my friends, Mark, Sarah, and I, decided to explore the manor one summer evening. We were young and eager for adventure, dismissing the warnings of the older folks who spoke of the manor with hushed voices and fearful glances. They said the place was cursed, haunted by the spirits of the family who once lived there. As the sun set and the sky turned a deep bruised purple, we made our way to the manor. The air grew cooler as we approached, and the towering silhouette of the house seemed to grow darker and more menacing. The front door hung ajar, creaking on its rusted hinges as we pushed it open and stepped inside. The interior was as foreboding as the outside, filled with dust and cobwebs, and the lingering smell of mold and decay. The grand staircase, once majestic, now sagged under the weight of time, and the ornate wallpaper peeled away in long, tattered strips. We explored cautiously, our footsteps echoing in the silence. In the library, we found shelves lined with old leather-bound books, their titles faded and unreadable. The room had an oppressive stillness, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end as we entered. Mark, ever the brave one, started flipping through the pages of a particularly large tome, but Sarah and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing our flashlight beams for a brief moment. We froze, listening intently. The house had fallen deathly silent, and the only sound was the faint rustling of leaves outside. Then we heard it, a soft, mournful wail echoing through the halls. "Did you hear that?" Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Mark nodded, his bravado fading. "It's probably just the wind," he said, though he didn't sound convinced. We continued our exploration, but the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. The air felt heavy, charged with a palpable sense of dread. As we wandered deeper into the house, we stumbled upon a small, hidden door beneath the staircase. It was slightly ajar, revealing a narrow, winding staircase that led down into the darkness. "Should we go down there?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark shrugged, trying to maintain his cool. "Why not? We've come this far." We descended the stairs cautiously, our flashlights flickering as we moved deeper into the bowels of the manor. The air grew colder, and the walls seemed to close in around us. At the bottom of the stairs, we found ourselves in a dimly lit basement, filled with old furniture and dusty, forgotten relics. In the corner of the room, we saw a large antique mirror, its glass cloudy and cracked. It seemed out of place in the otherwise mundane surroundings, and I couldn't help but feel drawn to it. As I approached, I noticed faint handprints on the surface, as if someone had pressed their hands against the glass from the other side. Suddenly, the mirror began to tremble, and a chill ran down my spine. I stumbled back as a dark figure appeared in the glass, a woman with long, disheveled hair and hollow, sunken eyes. Her mouth twisted into a silent scream, and her bony hands reached out towards us. We backed away in horror, but the room began to fill with a dense, suffocating fog. The temperature plummeted, and the air became thick with a foul, metallic stench. We turned to run, but the fog seemed to cling to us, making it difficult to move. "Help us!" The woman's voice echoed through the room, her plea filled with anguish and despair. "Free us from this torment!" Panic set in, and we scrambled up the stairs, the fog swirling around us like a living thing. The house seemed to shift and change as we ran, the walls closing in and the floors tilting beneath our feet. We could hear the woman's voice growing louder, mingling with the anguished cries of other spirits, trapped in their eternal prison. When we finally burst through the front door and into the night, we collapsed on the lawn, gasping for breath. The manor loomed behind us, dark and silent, as if nothing had happened. We didn't speak as we made our way back to town, too shaken by what we had experienced. The next day, we learned the truth about Greywood Manor. Decades ago, the family who lived there had been accused of practicing dark rituals and summoning malevolent spirits. The townspeople, driven by fear and superstition, had set fire to the manor, trapping the family inside. Their screams were said to echo through the night as the flames consumed them, and their spirits had been trapped there ever since, seeking vengeance on anyone who dared to enter. We never returned to Greywood Manor, and the memory of that night still haunts us. The manor stands as a grim reminder of the past, a place where the veil between the living and the dead is thin, and the restless spirits of the damned linger in the shadows, waiting for their chance to escape. And as the years passed, the stories about the manor grew darker, with whispers of those who had entered never returning, their souls claimed by the vengeful spirits of Greywood Manor. I'd been working the late shift at Walmart for just a few months when the strange occurrences began. It started innocuously enough. Small items moved, shelves inexplicably rearranged, but it was on a particularly stormy night that I encountered something that still makes my skin crawl. It was close to midnight, and the store was deserted except for a few employees. The rain hammered against the roof, and lightning occasionally illuminated the aisles. I was tasked with restocking shelves in the far corner of the store, near the seasonal section, which was filled with dusty Halloween decorations that hadn't been touched since last October. As I loaded candy bags onto the shelves, I felt a sudden, icy chill run down my spine. I turned around expecting to see one of my coworkers playing a prank, but the aisle was empty. Shrugging it off, I continued my work, though the eerie sensation lingered. Minutes later, I heard a faint rustling sound behind me. I spun around quickly, and this time I saw her, a woman standing at the end of the aisle. She was dressed in an old-fashioned black dress, her hair neatly pinned up, and her face was pale, almost translucent. She looked out of place, as if she had stepped out of another time. "Can I help you?" I called out, trying to sound calm. She didn't respond, just stared at me with hollow, sorrowful eyes. I took a step closer and she vanished, disappearing into thin air. I stood there, frozen in shock, my mind racing to make sense of what I had seen. Determined to get to the bottom of it, I went to the security office to review the footage. The cameras showed me working alone, but just as the figure had appeared to me, she flickered into view on the screen. She stood there watching me before dissolving into nothingness. My supervisor, who had been working there for years, noticed my disturbed expression and asked what was wrong. I hesitated, then told him what I had seen. To my surprise, he didn't dismiss my story. "You're not the first to see her," he said quietly. "That woman is known around here as the Phantom Shopper. She appears on stormy nights, wandering the aisles, as if looking for something she can never find." He explained that the ghost was believed to be a woman who had died in a tragic accident decades ago, when the store was a different establishment. Her spirit was said to be restless, forever searching for something lost to her in life. The storm outside raged on as he spoke, and the lights flickered ominously. I glanced back at the security screens, half expecting to see her again. The store felt suddenly cold and unwelcoming, the shadows in the aisles deeper and more foreboding. I finished my shift that night with a sense of dread, constantly glancing over my shoulder. The image of the Phantom Shopper haunted my thoughts, and every time I heard a rustle or saw a shadow move, I feared she had returned. Since that night, I have tried to avoid the store on stormy evenings. The memory of those hollow eyes and the sorrowful figure standing at the end of the aisle is something I can't forget. And sometimes, when the rain pounds against my windows and the wind howls, I wonder if she is still there, wandering the aisles of Walmart, forever searching for something she will never find.